It's here at the ShopRite Wall in Yeoville, Johannesburg, where hundreds of migrants, both from South Africa and the rest of Africa, come to find a place to stay. Many have entered the country illegally to escape political and economic instability back home and don't have the right paperwork to rent in the formal property market. This rental system is unique. It's characterized by extortion and slumlords, and it's a system where money talks. This is Vusi and Abi. They don't want their real identity revealed because they snuck in over the border, escaping a socio-economic crisis in South Africa's once flourishing neighbour, Zimbabwe. We met them at the ShopRite Wall, looking for a place to stay. This would be the 5th time they've moved in a year. They share a small room on the top of a building near Rocky Street. It's a geyser room, and they pay 1,500 Rand a month for this.
And how much do you expect to pay for the next place you're going to?
Two of us, if you get something like 1,000, it's okay. You can pay 1,000.
Can't afford to pay that huge amount of rent without reliable source of income, you see.
Vusi and Abi's situation is bleak. They don't have formal employment or a prospect of any down the line. But their story is not uncommon. Foreign renters living in Johannesburg's inner city can pay up to 2,600 Rand a month for one room, usually with no ablution facilities, and sometimes even without electricity. This is similar to the price of a well-maintained unit in some of Johannesburg's more upmarket suburbs. In order for tenants to afford these kinds of rental prices, they are forced to share, sometimes 4 to 5 people in one room.
Foreigners are paying more for the same accommodation than South Africans, in part because they have to sublet, because they don't have the proper documents, and even if they do, landlords, banks, others are often unwilling to recognize those. The problems of housing in Yeoville are more or less a problem of the housing policy generally in South African cities, in that you don't have a sort of entry-level rental market. The housing policy has been very much about providing houses to people that they can own, or a private rental market that is usually out of the reach of the poor.
Cross-border migrants who don't have the right documentation find themselves between a rock and a hard place. They need somewhere to stay, but they can't complain about their conditions because they're in the country illegally. Even if they wanted to complain, they'd probably find it hard to locate the owners of the buildings, because very often they've been hijacked or they're overrun by slumlords. The government calls these buildings bad buildings, and there are hundreds of them in the inner city.
We are using a block-by-block system because, the inner city is too big. It's a huge elephant. We must eat it bit by bit. For currently, we have identified 4 blocks. There's 1 block in Perea, one block in Perea, one block in Hillbrow, and about 2 blocks in the Joburg Park area. But we have added another block in the Jeppes area. In those particular blocks, we have gone through about more than 400 buildings in those particular blocks. We have arrested more than 200 people out of those buildings.
The South African government has spent billions rejuvenating Johannesburg's inner city, but there are hundreds of cases of bad buildings and thousands of migrants trapped in an informal and exploitative rental system. While there seems to be substantial progress in cleaning up the city by the state, the entry of the private sector will be key in closing that gap. But then the returns need to be there. But for Yeoville, it seems for now, they're not.
Our latest figure shows that the replacement cost gap is about 20%. So in other words, if you build a property, it's going to be 20% more than buying an existing property. The replacement cost values for the sectional title properties in Yeoville is rather low. We're looking at about 2,500 Rand per square meter, which is exceptionally low for the type of accommodation that it offers. And to develop new properties, the profit margins is just not as attractive to develop properties in that segment as it would be for a more affluent suburb.